Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope you're doing great. I'm Fathan Ghavari from Chemical Engineering, and today we're going to talk about hobbies. What is hobby? A hobby is considered to be a regular activity that is done for enjoyment, typically during one's leisure time, not professionally, and not for pay. Hobbies include collecting them items and objects, engaging in creative and artistic pursuit, playing sports, or pursuing other amusement. Participation in hobbies encourage acquiring substantial skills and knowledge in that area. A list of hobbies change with renewed interest and developing passions, making it diverse and lengthy. Hobbies tend to follow trends in society. For example, stamp collecting. It was popular during the 19th and the 20th centuries, as the postal system were the main means of communication at that time. While video games were more popular nowadays, following technological advance, the advancing production technology in the 19th century provided workers with more availability in leisure time to engage in hobbies. Because of this, efforts of people interested in hobbies has increased with time. Hobbies, people who like to do hobbies, may be identified under three subcategories. First, casual leisure, which is intrinsically rewarding, short-lived, pleasurable activity, require little to no preparation. Serious leisure, which is systematic pursuit of an amateur hobbyist or volunteer that is substantial, rewarding, and results in a sense of accomplishment. And finally, third, a project-based leisure, which is a short term, often one-off project that is highly rewarding. Etymology. In the, in the 16th century, the term hobin had the meaning of small horse or a pony. The term hobby horse was first documented in 1557 in the payment confirmation for a hobby horse from Reading, England. The item, originally called a tourney horse, it was made it was a wooden horse made of a wood or a basket work frame with, a, with an artificial tail and head. It was designed for a child to mimic riding a real horse. By the 1816, the derivative hobby was introduced to the vocabulary of a number of English people. Over the course of subsequent centuries, the term came to be associated with recreation and leisure. In the 17th century, the term was used in a pejorative sense by suggesting that hobby was a childish pursuit. However, in the 18th century, with more industrial society and more leisure time, hobbies took on a greater respectability. A hobby is also referred as pastime, derived from the use of hobbies, which is to pass time. A hobby became an activity that is practiced regularly and usually with some worthwhile purpose. Hobbies are usually, but not always, usually practiced primarily for interest and enjoyment rather than a financial reward. History. Hobbies were originally described as pursuits that others thought somewhat childish or trivial. However, as early as 1676, Sir Matthew Hale, in his book Contemplation Moral and Divine, wrote, almost every person has some hobby horse or other wherein he prides himself. He was acknowledge, he was acknowledging that a hobby horse produced a legitimate sense of pride. By the mid-18th century, there was a flourishing of hobbies as working people had more regular hours of work and a greater leisure time. They spend more time to pursue interests that brought them satisfaction. However, there was concern that these working people might not use their leisure time in worthwhile pursuits. The hope of winning people away from bad habit by the provision of counter-attraction came to the force came to the fore in 1813 and has rarely won since. Initially, the bad habits were perceived to be a sensual and physical nature. The counter-attraction, perhaps more accurately, alternative, deliberately cultivated rationally and the intellect. The flourishing book and magazine trades of the day encourage worthwhile hobbies and pursuits. The bargaining manufacturing trade made material used in hobbies cheap and were responsive to the changing interests of hobbies. Hobbies. Hobbies are a part of a wider group of people engaged in leisure pursuit where the boundaries of each group overlap to some extent. The serious leisure perspective group, group hobbies with amateurs and volunteers and identified three broad groups of leisure activity with hobby being found mainly in serious leisure category. Casual leisure is intrinsically rewarding. Short-lived, pleasurable activity require little or no preparation. Serious leisure is systematic pursuit of an amateur, hobbyist, or volunteer that is substantial, rewarding, and results in a sense of accomplishment. Finally, project-based leisure is a short-term and often one-off project that is very rewarding, just like this discussed before. The term amateur and hobbyist are often used interchangeably. Stebbins has a framework which distinguishes the term in a useful categorization of leisure, which casual leisure is separated from serious leisure. He describes serious leisure as undertaken by amateurs, hobbyists, and volunteers. Amateurs engage in pursuits that have a professional counterpart, such as playing an instrument or astronomy. Hobbyists engage in five broad types of activity: collecting, making, and tinkering. Activity participation are sports and games, and liberal arts, hobbies. Volunteers commit to organizations where they work as guides, counselors, gardeners, and so on. The separation of the amateur from the hobbyist is because the amateur has the ethos of the professional practitioner as a guide to practice. An amateur clarinetist is conscious of the role and producer of a professional clarinetist. A large portion of hobbies are mainly solitary in nature. However, individual pursuit of a hobby often includes club memberships, organizing or products, and regular communication between participants. For many hobbies, there is an important role in being in touch with fellow hobbies. Some hobbies are of communal nature, like choral singing and volunteering. People who engage in hobbies have an interest in time to pursue them. Children have been an important group of hobbyists because they are enthusiastic for collecting, making, and exploring. In addition to this, they have leisure time that allows them to pursue other hobbies. The growth in hobbies occurred during the industrialization, which gave workers had time for leisure. During the Great Depression, there were an increase in the participation in hobbies because the unemployed had the time and desire to be purposefully occupied. Hobbies are often pursued with an increased interest by retired people because they have the time and seek the intellectual and physical stimulation a hobby provides. That's all from me, everyone. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.